Hi, my name is Amanda and welcome to my channel, Learning to Love Yarn. In this video, I kind of want to do a little story and just tell why I decided that I wanted to learn how to knit. It's kind of a roundabout story that doesn't really make sense, but it makes sense in my mind. So basically, my desire to spend more time outside with my child is why I decided to learn how to knit. And I don't think that you would ever think about knitting and think this is like an outdoorsy thing to do. Obviously, you can knit outside, and I do knit outside whenever I can, but I don't think anybody would ever think knitting is outdoorsy. Like, that's kind of a indoorsy habit, I would say, or an indoorsy hobby. So it doesn't really make sense, but like I said, we're gonna get there. So I had my first and only child in 2020, and that was a really interesting time to be a new parent. And obviously, by interesting, what I mean is like anxiety inducing and terrifying. And so I did what new moms do, and I dug into the internet and tried to learn all kinds of parenting things. And after a while, I came across this Instagram account called the 1000 Hours Outside. Well, it's just called 1000 Hours Outside. But it's like kind of a project, and there's a podcast. And if you have not checked it out, if you're a parent, you should, because it's pretty life-changing. But I really dug into that, and I started listening to the podcast, and it's really all about the benefits of being outside for children and of doing things in the real world. And it's a really great podcast, and the host interviews all these super interesting authors. And so I love listening to podcasts, but I also love reading. I'm always joking that they hide information in books. And so one of the books that I read after listening to the podcast episode about it was a book that I have right here, Grow Wild by Katie Bowman. And in that book, she talks about how we need movement, just like we need food, and that just like with food, we need different types of movement. So, you know, kale is healthy, but if all you ever ate was kale, that would not be very healthy. And riding a bike is healthy, but if all you ever do is ride a bike, that's not going to meet your movement needs completely on its own. And so she talked about how, you know, we need small movements with our hands. And she talked about how fidget spinners, which was a big craze a few years ago for kids, is like a way that kids can meet that need to like be doing something with their hands. And she was talking about how there's other ways that kids can meet that need. And one of the things that she recommended was like making cords, to have like cords around your house for things. And I really thought about that, and I thought, you know, I am like that too. Like, I need something to do with my hands, because if I'm watching TV, like, I remember being a kid, and when I was watching TV, I was always like coloring or drawing or just doodling and journaling. And so I'm still like that now, except for that now what do? I sit and I scroll my smartphone. So I'm like double screening. I've got the TV on, and then I'm also on my phone. And it's not very good for you to be doing that all the time. So I was thinking, you know, I need to find something that I can be doing to meet that need for myself, because it's going to be good for me, and it's going to set a good example for my daughter, because I can't tell her, oh, you shouldn't be on the phone all the time, if I'm on the phone all the time. So I wanted to find something that would meet that need. And also, not just for like watching TV, but you know, if you're outside with your kids and they're playing, sometimes you're not going to be playing with them. They're going to be playing independently, and you might just be sitting there. And what are you going to do? You're probably going to get out your phone and start scrolling, because you just need something to do with your hands, take your attention. And you can bring a book, and that is a totally fun thing to do for me. But sometimes it's just doesn't meet that need for me all the time. So one of the things that I also was doing was, looking at all these other accounts about like getting kids outside and just activities with kids. And I came across this video of this little girl who was knitting. And I just thought it was so cool. She was older than my daughter. I think my daughter was probably around 2 at that time. And so not old enough to learn how to knit, or at least she was not old enough. Maybe some 2-year-olds are, but she was definitely not. So I was thinking, like, that is so cool. And I wish that I could knit. I would love it if I could knit. And then I thought about it and I was like, why can't I learn how to knit? I can learn how to knit. I mean, this like 7 or 8-year-old child in this video is knitting. If she learned how to do it, I can learn how to do it. I do think that kids learn to do new things all the time. They're just kind of forced to. Like, your child doesn't know how to read, and then they have to learn how to read. They just have to, and they learn how to do it, and they learn how to ride a bike, and they're just constantly learning new things. And I think sometimes as adults, we think that we can't learn new things. We think like, I know how to do my job, and I do my job, and I know how to do the stuff I need to do at home. And I think there's just like this mindset that anything that I'm ever going to know how to do or be good at, I already know how to do it, and I'm already good at it. And if there's something new, I'm too old to learn how to do this new thing. But that is not true. You may not have time to learn how to do a new thing right now. Sometimes you just don't have time. And people say things when you say you don't have time, like, well, everybody has the same amount of time in their day, and if it's important to you, you'll make time. Okay, well, I don't think that everybody really has. People have the same 24 hours, but they have a lot of different things in those 24 hours. And it may be that you don't have time right now because, yes, I could stop doing something that I'm already doing to make time for this new thing. But right now, the things I'm already doing are very high priorities to me. So I'm not going to make time right now and take away from the important things I'm already doing. So definitely there are just some times in your life you do not have time to learn how to do something new. But it's not because you're too old. You're not too old to learn how to do something new. And you just hear people say like, oh, I'm too old to learn how to do, like, I'm too old to learn how to play the piano, or I'm too old to learn a new language or whatever. But you're not. You may not have the time and resources to learn how to do it, but you're not too old. Or at least I don't think so. So that just caused me to just think to myself, I could totally learn how to knit, and it would give me something to do, and it would be like a new hobby for me that's just for me. And I really was thinking about a lot of good examples that I wanted to set for my daughter. Like, I want to set the example to her that you can learn something new at any point in your life, and that it's okay to have things that are yours, that you do for your own enjoyment, that are not for some kind of purpose that you have to do them. You just do it because you enjoy doing it. You don't have to have a reason to have a hobby of something that's fun and that you enjoy. And that is something that I wanted to set as an example for her. And I also wanted her to see me not just on my phone all the time. Obviously, I'm not against phones or anything like that. I'm just against being on them constantly, to the detriment of your mental health and own health and all that sort of thing. So whenever I wanted to learn how to knit, what I did was I got my phone and I got on YouTube and I looked up videos about how to knit. And I probably spent like a month trying to figure out the knit stitch because I thought I was doing it right and I wasn't doing it right and I couldn't get it figured out. But then I like rewatched the video a lot of times, finally figured it out. It's really not that hard. And then I was like off to the races, and I loved it and I love it. And I started looking at a lot of different knitting related accounts and like knitting on YouTube and Instagram, and I found so many cool things that I want to learn how to knit, that I wanted to learn how to knit. And I have checked some of those off my list, but not all. So I started knitting in November of 2022, and it's now February. It's February of 2024. I I feel it's like 1 month has gone by and already the year's getting away from me like it always does. But anyways, so I started learning to knit then, just watching YouTube. And then I was really lucky. There was a free knitting class at the local library, and I had already been knitting for several months. But then this knitting class came up, and so I went to that, and it was great. I made new friends, and I learned new knitting techniques, and now that knitting class has turned into just a knitting group that meets at the library every week, and I don't get to go very often because I'm very busy, but when I do get to go, it's always great. And since then, I have also learned how to crochet. I'm definitely not as good at crochet because I haven't done as much of it, but I love that too, and I think it's super fun. And now I just cannot imagine not knitting and crocheting. And I have so many more things that I want to learn how to make, and I want to learn how to dye yarn and spin yarn. I don't know if that's something that I'll do all the time, the way that I knit all the time, but it is something that I would really like to learn about. It's becoming this whole huge hobby for me, and it's opened up all kinds of new things for me. And knitting is really kind of a perfect hobby for me as a mom and as somebody who works full-time, because it's so mobile. It travels well. You can knit in front of the television, and you can knit riding in a vehicle if someone else is driving, and you can knit on an airplane if you're on a trip, and you can knit on your lunch break at work or in the doctor's office. And it's okay if you only have 5 minutes to work on it, and then you have to stop. And it's okay if you have to set it down in the middle of doing it because your child needs something, or the dog needs something, or your husband needs something. It's fine. You just set it down and come back to it. You don't have to have a ton of equipment to get started. I used to sew a little bit when I was a kid, and I have wanted to do that as an adult, and I hope at some point that I will get to. But it's kind of, if you have a sewing machine, it's really nice if you have a designated area in your house, like this is where the sewing machine is. If you have to get the sewing machine out, then you're going to spend a lot of time, or I'm going to spend a lot of time getting it set up. And it's possible that by the time I'm able to get started, I already have something else that's needing my attention, and I'm not even going to hardly get to start before I have to stop. But knitting is not like that. All you really need is yarn and knitting needles. At some point, you're going to need a pair of scissors. Most of the other stuff is like nice to have, but not need to have. It's really nice to have stitch markers, especially like really cute stitch markers and cute stitch stoppers, and you can have stitch counters. And there's a lot of really cool, helpful knitting gear and really cute knitting gear, and it's super fun. But if you find yourself without those things and all you have is knitting needles and yarn, you can knit, and you can take it with you places. And I have knitted in waiting rooms. I've knitted on my lunch break. I have knitted outside. I have knitted on the airplane. I have knitted on road trips. It's just something that I really enjoy doing. I cannot imagine not doing it now. So if you are thinking, maybe I should learn how to knit, you totally should. You can watch videos. You can learn how to do it. If I can learn how to do it, you can learn how to do it. And it is super fun. So that's my whole spiel. There's probably more that I could say, but that is why I decided that I wanted to learn how to knit and kind of how I got started. And so I'm hoping to continue to share all about knitting on this channel. Thanks for watching.